The first area that we want to talk about is detox. And Martin and I have been working together for probably about 15 years at this point. And one of the things that he first said to me that I just loved was, and we talked a little bit about it in the introduction, was if you find yourself in a deep hole, the first thing you do is stop digging the hole. In other words, most of the time, what we do when we have a problem is we make it worse. And we can see that in soap operas or any type of space opera where two people get emotionally involved and upset, and then everything they say just makes it worse. And so what is probably the best thing to do? Shut up, right? Or deal with the emotional issues without being in all the emotional issues, right? Like if you're angry, like deal with why you're angry, don't take it out on the other person. And we don't spend a lot of time learning how to communicate in ways that are nonviolent. And so, most of the time when we talk about toxicity, we're talking about heavy metals and stuff that's lead and all this sort of stuff. But the other side of toxicity that nobody talks about is the trauma that comes from toxic people in our lives. So if people are not supporting you, if they're putting you down, if they're making life miserable for you, then you have to deal with that because a lot of people will tell you that the diseases that we have start out here in the emotional, mental, spiritual realms, and then they move into the body and they manifest themselves physically. And so that's really something to consider because as you become less toxic uh, emotionally and mentally and spiritually, then your body has an ability to become less toxic too. Having said that, we are in a very toxic environment. There's lots of stuff, as we've talked earlier, that make your body overloaded with stuff that it just has never known how to deal with. Like we've never had to deal with radiation, we've never had to deal with cell phone towers and the radiation that comes off of that, or EMFs, or all the mercury that's being pumped into our air. So, or even that's in the light bulbs if you're under fluorescent lights. So we're really going to be talking about two types of detoxing. We'll be talking mostly about the physical detox, but I wanted to start this off by telling you, you need to go, and we're going to be going into trauma and releasing trauma more, but you need to be thinking about this too in terms of, where am I mentally challenged or emotionally challenged in ways that are not growing me, right? In ways that are putting me down. So, Martin, let's talk a little bit more now about some of the physical things that we can do to detox our body.
Indeed. And so there are these various pathways we have, right? Like one of the major detox organs we have is actually the skin. The way we unload things that are in the lymphatic system that are not being filtered out is we can actually sweat them out. And some cultures have already discovered that. The Finns and the Russians do this. The Finns have sauna, or sauna as they would call it. And the way you work it is you get yourself really heated up until you're sweating profusely, and then you jump into a cold lake. And the reason you do the cold after the hot is because when you jump into the cold, your body squeezes everything in the surface layer to protect. And it's as if to lock out everything that came to the surface. So owning an far infrared sauna is a wonderful thing. Owning a blanket, electric blanket, we recommend the one that's called Biomat, which is a really special tool. The Biomat is built with tourmaline and amethyst. Those two minerals are actually polarizing the infrared radiation. You may know that when you look at the world through polarizing glasses, everything looks sharper. It's just clear and organized. Well, you can actually polarize the infrared radiation, and that's the Biomat does that. And we can, well, let's share a link to the Biomats in our resource section. Anyway, the biomat is awesome because you can lay on it, you can dial in the temperature that you can stand. The hotter, the better, and sweat up, and then go have yourself a shower. Cold is better than hot. And if you have none of these tools, you can at least do a hot shower alternating with cold shower. So that would be make yourself as hot as you can and then turn on the cold and wait until you can no longer stand it. So for the first 10 seconds, it's going to be like, oh my, and but actually you'll get used to that, and it's phenomenal what the body can do. There is another technique called cryotechnology, which is these days people are spending huge amounts of money on stepping into a space that's chilled, that where the air is chilled to Arctic levels, like minus 150 degrees. That also is causing the skin to pop all the toxins that it has. And then another device from this category is called Ionic Foot Spa. The Ionic Foot Spa is sort of like electroplating, if you could imagine. It's drawing out of your body all things electropositive and depositing them onto the electronegative electrode that's in the water. So whatever your feet, your skin is ready to give up, will be pulled out. So that again is unloading the lymphatic system and unloading the burden that's on your kidneys that are trying to filter out the toxins. So those are very useful gadgets. Heavy metals. That's the worst that I know of. That is the most disruption that your body has to deal with. We have been using medically, or not we, in the world out, the recommended method has been EDTA chelation, intravenous. So you would get yourself into a doctor's office where they would plug you into an IV through a vein, and for an hour to an hour and a half, you'd be sitting there with a drip line that would be sending EDTA into your body. EDTA is indiscriminate. It chelates, means it attaches everything that's electropositive. So it will chelate the lead and mercury, but it will also chelate calcium, magnesium, and other useful minerals. So if you're doing that, number one, it's costly. Number two, it's time consuming. And number three, it's not that good health-wise because you have to actually try and resupply all the minerals that have been taken out. We have found that using zeolite, especially the subspecies of zeolite called clinoptilolite, is actually very efficient and effective. This zeolite has the ability to bind electropositive metals into its lattice. Think of it like a fishnet or a sweater that you pull apart. There are these eyelets in it, and each of these little sites is electronegative, so it's capable of attracting and holding an electropositive element. And because of its structure, it only holds the biggest and heaviest. So it will only hold lead, mercury, cadmium, the heavy ones. It will not pull calcium or magnesium out of your body. Plus, there is no chemical reaction. It's only a physical, electrophysical attraction. So no side effects other than you may feel a bit tired doing it because it is putting some burden on your liver and the filtration system. Anyway, this zeolite is wonderful stuff, especially if you couple it with fulvic acid. Fulvic acid is that which is capable of getting inside your cells and pushing out of them the toxic material that has somehow gotten inside and shouldn't be there. So in the combination, the fulvic is like a little broom that sweeps it out of the cells, and the zeolite is more like the sponge that will suck it up and allow you to transport it out of your body. Further to that, we have MSM, bioavailable sulfur. Sulfur is important in the oxygen transport. It allows better transition of oxygen from outside of the cell to the inside of the cell. So especially tiredness, especially fatigue, is alleviated by supplementing this bioavailable sulfur, because you will have better oxygen intake at the cellular level. Plus the MSM stands for methyl sulfonyl methane. So the sulfonyl, that's the thing that helps with the sulfur. The methyl is what helps with methylation, which is, I mentioned it elsewhere, phase 2 liver detoxification, helps the body to neutralize toxic things so that they may be safely removed from your body. So supplementing a good amount, and by that we mean 2 to 3 teaspoons every day of MSM, is going to make a wonderful contribution to your detox process. Further to that, we have humic acid, which will help you in the digestive system. It's especially the humic acid powder contains a fair amount of charcoal, which is absorbing all the stuff that you need to get out of your body. And also we offer in our store high pectin apple fiber. This is a really interesting thing. Normally, apple fiber is just sawdust, but this high pectin apple fiber, which is extracted from the skins of the apples, is capable of binding toxins within the pectin. That's very efficient, very effective, removing things that are in your body and shouldn't be there. So as you're removing the burden, you will start working better. The things you will notice as you start detoxing is that your head starts clearing, your memory starts returning, your fatigue doesn't show up as early as it used to. Anyway, the progress is pretty quick. In my own history, I think after 3 months of this, I was already starting to feel like me, my old self. But I've had examples of people getting on MSM and calling back on a third day and saying, this is how simple this is. Is this all it was? I spent years in chronic fatigue, and third day I'm ready to take on the world. Scott, any notes on detox? What do you remember?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. And, we covered a lot of different ways and a lot of different substances, I guess would be the best way to put it, that you can use. And this is where you need to sort of look at yourself and see where you are, what sort of environment you're in, and then learn some more about this. We're just giving you kind of the overview. And in the resources, we'll have links so you can find out more about each of these specific items that Martin has talked about, and then you can decide for yourself. And of course, you can always send us a message or contact us, and we'll be happy to talk to you and work you through, whatever your specific issues are. Because this is a global course, we cannot be specific to an individual, because that would only apply to 1 out of 7 billion people in the world, not to everybody. So we're kind of giving you the broad strokes, and from there you need to work and figure out what you need for you in your individual situation.
Right. Yeah, if all fails, contact the health coach.
That's right.
Or maybe ahead of that all fails, maybe instead of waiting to fail so many times, get some help early on.
That's right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about stop digging the hole in the next lecture, when we talk about having a clean life.